And so it's
Yeah.
finally coming out now that there are cryptids, for lack of a better term, multidimensional beings or beings that seem to have the ability either to shift out of our visual spectrum or to shift into another dimensional space, or both. I don't think we have a lock on everything that goes on with the various nations that people have witnessed that sort of phenomena happening around. I don't think we understand all of what goes on, but we can say now that multiple cryptid or unusual creature researchers, whether that's an earth animal, a multidimensional being, or an extraterrestrial, as in not from this planet being, people haven't been willing to talk about the bizarre things even within the bizarre field up until about now. And it's finally coming out.
And hello, welcome to the Inner Sanctum in August 2020. And I've got the fabulous Sue Walker with us online. Welcome to the Inner Sanctum, Sue.
Thank you very much. Really glad to be back. I've been looking forward to this all month, honestly, all month. Can't wait to meet you guys.
Oh, I know. We had a great time on the show. It was so much fun to learn about the Ponte, and we're going to learn more today, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit about Sasquatch as well. Let me just tell people who don't know Sue, you've been an internationally renowned clairvoyant and psychic and medical intuitive for over 3 decades, and you've been featured both nationally and internationally on television and assisted many people, including the police, the FBI, the CIA, CEOs, doctors, chiropractors, psychologists, investors, actors, artists. You've had a really huge career as, you know, using your intuitive psychic abilities, which is just so cool. That's just so cool. I won't go into everything. You've studied everything on earth, like Reiki and all sorts of healing things, hypnotherapy. You've done it all. You sound a bit like me, actually. And a lifelong experiencer, but for the experiencer with off-world ET or alien, whatever word you want to use, extra dimensionals, extraterrestrial. And for the last 5 years, you've been translating with a group of extraterrestrials from the Zeta Reticuli 2, who operate under a base beneath the Sandia Mountain on the eastern edge of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And these guys you call the Ponte, spelled P''NTI. They don't call themselves ET, they call themselves humans, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Do you want to tell us what they say about being human?
They told us, and the first individual that I spoke with, I nicknamed Sandia because that's where his voice came from, but his real name is Tilcum. And when I spoke that first 1.5 years with Tilcum alone, Otter and I both could hear him equally clearly. He told us within the first 2 weeks that they consider themselves human also. There are many variations of human, which was the way, not demon, human in our galaxy, and that there were many variations on the theme of having 1 large head, 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. The heights varied, the cranium sizes varied, the number of fingers would vary, the size of the eyes and the various capabilities might vary, but they all of them considered themselves human. Just a variation on a theme. And so when Star Nations came here, they recognized another human variation type and went, oh, look, cousins. So the Ponte have, from the very get-go, taught us that we are Earth human and they are Ponte human.
Right. I love, David has a group on a Tuesday night here in Sydney, which is way so earlier in the States, but one of James and his group got us to hue the other night. We were all hewing. We're going hue, and he was saying that the hue means spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of another name for spirit. So if you put hue and man together, you get spirit and man. It's really quite interesting, isn't it?
Makes sense, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And what else did they tell you about their earth connections or their human body? And why are they here? Why are they on Earth?
Why are they here? We asked them that very early on, and the response that we got back is because they're here because we live on one of the most beautiful water planets in this part of the galaxy. And where there's water, there's life. And where there's life, there's things to explore. And so the resources were here, the fresh water was here, the temperate climate was here. And the Ponte told us that they had records from their own people exploring in the very early days, as well as other star nations' records that they borrowed, almost like we would borrow maps from other explorers and combine maps from different countries and different cultures. If we were going to go explore a new place on the planet, they would consult other star nations, and their earliest records go back here more than 150,000 years. They tell us that we are the fifth intelligent civilization to reach the ability to leave our own atmosphere. The first one was Reptarian. The next four were a variation of human. And that the fact, the facility that they are located in, if you see me pointing this way, I'm pointing out my picture window at the Sandia Mountain. And this facility beneath the Sandia Mountain, they told us was retrofitted into the ancient tunnel system left over by the last age of man that runs north-south along the eastern edge of the Rocky Mountains. Now it has feeder side tunnels that stretch all over under the desert Southwest in Colorado and even up in your area up in Montana. But the main line, if I can use that phrasing, initiated with the north-south tunnel on the eastern edge of the Rockies that runs probably from Montana all the way down to the Mexican border.
All the way up the Interstate 90. And,
yeah, up that way, right?
Yeah, all the way.
Yep. So that's part of what they've said. They're here, and one of Teal'c's statements to us was he knew when he came here in 1990 that he trained specifically because they were very aware that the changes in our world, changing our environment, changing our habitat, changing the livability of this world, were speeding up, and that his mission was also to assist Earth with its official first contact because it was coming sooner because of the huge Earth changes rather than later. And so they have been very aware of the climate changes that are going on and very aware that it has gone beyond a tipping point that neither they nor any other star nation can stop, nor would they want to, because it's part of the natural reset cycle of our planet.
Now that's a good question. That's actually a debate that many people in the conscious arena are having. You know, is climate change a natural thing? Are we polluting the planet? And then there are some that are saying, oh, you climate change people, you're all mad. And then there are signs saying, oh, you people that think it's a natural thing are mad. You know, everyone's arguing about it. I think personally it's a bit of both. I think
it is a bit of both.
So what do they say about it? Because
the vast majority of the problem is, well, I'm not going to say problem, the vast majority of the source of climate changes that are occurring here now come from our own sun and from the conditions brought in from the rest of the galaxy as we spin all the way around and have done a 360-degree turn all the way around the galaxy and come back to the starting point, we get the same influence from the galactic center. That influences our solar system and all of the solar systems in this arm of the galaxy, in this quadrant, and it affects our sun enough that it changes and intensifies and escalates some of the changes that occur on our planet. And the geomagnetic changes are changing not only on Earth, but on every other planet in our solar system. And our astronomers have watched these same kind of solar changes occur in Barnard's star and Alpha Centauri. So as this sweep from the galactic center came heading toward us, we watched it affect other star systems before it got to the edge of ours. And the Ponte have said that the very beginnings of the changes that we see are occurring now, but these are like the first wind gusts ahead of the storm, not the storm itself. And things will get much worse. And because all of the star nations in this area of the galaxy, all of them that have visited our world, are very aware of space weather, if you can say it that way, across the galaxy. They know what's coming for us and know that we're going to need some help.
Do they say anything about the solar flare that a lot of people are talking about, that there's going to be a big emission from the sun and it's going to wipe out the internet and, you know, take out the grid system? Have they spoken anything about that to you?
They have. You understand that our world has its own geomagnetics. We have a North Pole and a South Pole like a magnet does. The sun has its own magnetics too. And all of these effects change the geomagnetics of whatever celestial body, whether it's a star or a planet or a moon. They're changing the magnetic effects that are internal within that celestial body. Those changes that affect our sun can cause it to send off essentially a huge burst of energy. And we have record of this, according to the Ponte, in the geology of our rocks here on Earth in the past. I don't know how up-to-date geology is with the magnetics on those kinds of levels. Do they say that we are at any point in time under threat of having something like that affect us? Yes, they do. We are under that kind of a watch right now. And it would be very similar to many of you did not live in the middle of the United States in Tornado Alley where I lived. But when the conditions were ripe for a tornado, they would first put what they called a tornado watch, meaning conditions are ripe just in case you need to, you better be able to get under cover and get safe, versus a tornado warning is when the tornado is on the ground heading toward your town. They only sound tornado warning sirens when it's heading straight for you, already on the ground, not just when the conditions are right. We are currently, according to the Ponte, under a solar storm watch, if I can use that analogy. We're not under a warning quite yet, but could a sudden wind gust come in and affect our sun very quickly and send something our way without much notice? Yes, it could. And so they tell us the conditions currently are ripe and ripening.
Yeah, I guess there's nothing that we can do about it. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen. Look, there's a few questions here. Sarah's come online to say hello, and it's first off the rank with a question. Yay, Sarah! Might any of the Ponte friends pop in a while we're on this conversation? Are they enjoying and listening in? You know, Sarah, I was just saying before we turned the recording on, when I was putting my makeup on this morning, I felt like I had an audience and I felt like they were really interested in what I was doing. It's like, let me see how you're doing that.
Are they around? They're always around for us. The Ponte always are keep a half a listening ear out, and they were very aware because we told a number of our friends and other people that we were going to do this today. They're asking if we're going to have Ponte visitors today during the show, and
there's 4 or 5 of them here right now.
I haven't been paying attention. Did you see them walk in?
Yeah.
Okay. Otter says we do have company. So if you need to ask them something, we'll see if they'll allow the trainees. The trainees aren't always allowed to speak, but the regular staff usually doesn't have any problem at all responding to our questions immediately and giving some kind of an answer to what people are asking. If they are not allowed to speak about something or they have to get permission to speak about it from their boss, they'll let us know that too. So yes, I think that we have company, and who knows how much company of what kind we will end up having. We'll find out.
So when Otter says that they're here, he's seeing them psychically. He's experiencing them or feeling them psychically. And you're kind of more focused on us?
I was listening to you, and that was where my focus was.
Yeah.
Did you see them with your eyes, or did you see them psychically today?
Oh, they're energetic forms.
So you didn't see the shimmer walk across the room? Or you just...
That's what I did see.
Okay, that was what I was asking. Okay. Yep, he says that they're
being sent down here by radar because you're doing a broadcast show on the internet, and they have to learn all this stuff.
Radar is one of their staff members who keeps his finger on the pulse of anything spoken about them or other star nations because they're trying to get a feel for what Earth humans are expecting or thinking or feeling about extraterrestrials. And so Otter just said that Radar was told he needed to listen in on this show because it involved them.
No, his students.
Oh, his students do.
Uh-huh.
Nee and Leedy and Larry Moe and Curly Joe.
Okay, so David has a question here. Are the fires all part of a cleansing? Did they say anything about what's happening with the California fires or the fires around the globe? Have they spoken on any of the earth changes, the big tornadoes and everything? And
well, the dryness that is part of the weather pattern changes that affects the dryness of the environment, the trees, the scrub, makes it more susceptible to lightning strikes here and in California, but also the intensity of the storms that's been increasing, the intensity of the variations in weather that have contributed to part of it. So is it all interconnected? Yeah, it is. Can't say that there's any one cause, but it's all interlinked because of the environmental changes that are going on, sure.
Ah, I see. And Monica has a question here too. So what degree of coordination are there between various ET groups who are involved in Earth with what we would call a positive agenda for Earth? I know Kevin speaks of Galactic Council. So yeah, Kevin has a mob, the council, which are a variety of ETs, the Zeta being one of them, the Greys, I suppose they're called. Might understand, does that not include all ET civilizations who are involved with the Earth? Do you want to ask that question, Monica? Are there various galactic councils? Good question. Are there various galactic councils?
All right, so your question is, how many extraterrestrial civilizations visit our planet on a regular basis? Are they all friendly? Do they all get along? And if there is an agreement between them, do we have a name for that group, and what is that agreement? Do I have that right? Okay, so the Ponte have told us that on any given day, there are between 75 and 80 separate star nations visiting this world. About 75% of those are in the ocean.
Wow.
About 25% we see here on land. Okay. Of those that we see on land, do they all get along all the time? Are they all allies? The vast majority of them are positive. But can you say all of them are? Oh, no. There are nefarious Star Nation reputations, and all of the rest of the galaxy has a little bit better finger on the pulse of the background, history, and backstory that all of those nations have with each other that we don't know yet. We are just at the very beginning fringes of learning about. Is there a current treaty in place signed by Earth humans as well as visiting terrestrial land-based star nations? Yes, there is a current treaty. I do not have the number of nations that signed that treaty, nor all their names. I have visual images of some of them because the Ponte, when they talk about them, think about those images, and I catch them every once in a while. Are all of those humanoid or human-looking nations? No. Are some of them Sauron, reptilian, or reptarian? Yes. Do all of those nations get along with all of the human-type nations? No. Do all of the land-based nations get along with all of the ocean or aquatic nations? No, they don't all get along. So there is a backstory in all of that. The treaty that we are aware of, that Telecom shared with us about, was signed in 1971. They refer to it as the Desert Treaty or the Desert Accord. They send images of meetings that take place out in the middle of a desert that was not North America. And that meeting was attended by a variety of nations, not all of which are our size even. Okay, there were smaller nations as well as much taller nations. We are very aware that there are comings and goings of the vast majority of them being positive ETs all the time here, but we also are aware that not all of the star nations are what you would call polite, nice people. They all use what are referred to as the ancient Earth portals, the land-based portals that are marked in our landscape, are used by just about anybody. But just like if you were driving down through a city and you had to get off on an exit, one exit might be a very nice neighborhood. Another exit might take you into business downtown. Another exit might take you into the slums or gangland. And so there are some portals that are more like gangland portals, where nefarious folks use that area rather than the nicer star nations. There are some places where we know that there are ET facilities underground that host not nice people, although the vast majority, again, above 95%, are very positive. We just can't claim that all star nations that visit this planet are good and on the up and up. Our Ponte friends and the alliance that they form with other nations that keeps Earth in protected planet status tries to catch everybody, but they can't catch everyone. And so do nefarious folks sneak in now and again? Yes, they do. Are some of those nations confused with star nations, but they're really inherent to Earth only in a multi-dimensional format or dimensional format instead of coming from another planet? Yes. We've had some discussions with them about that too. And we find that there is a great deal of confusion in the paranormal, ghost busting, UFO, Sasquatch community, where people are labeling what they're perceiving incorrectly, according to the Ponte. Sometimes they're labeled a ghost when they're really a multidimensional person, or a Star Nation person. Sometimes they're labeled an ET when it really is not that case. So we're getting an education, and it's far from complete by right now. Well, we don't have all the information quite yet. And so we're learning right along with the rest of you, which is exactly why we encourage as many people as possible to have conversations with the Ponte so that they get a chance to learn, ask questions, and add to our database.
It also answers questions about their societies along, and the ones they interconnect or in contact, okay? Not just them.
Right.
Because there's other people involved and their cultures are different, that you want to learn all those cultures. You just got to take them one at a time and work with them so you understand them. Because you talk to one culture doesn't mean that another culture is happy about it. So.
Right. Otter has a point. There are some cultures that we are not sharing information about yet because that culture has not given us permission to do so.
Fascinating. I've got millions of questions here, Sue, so I'm going to move on. That is absolutely fascinating. Diane says, do you, hang on, see them? No, there was another one, Sue. Does the sun upgrade our DNA and change our consciousness? From Sarah.
I guess I would have to say the sun would be part of it because it's part of our environment. But really, I guess it would be more accurate to say everything environmentally that influences you can influence your physiological chemistry and your brain chemistry, and your intent to learn or not learn makes a difference. But all by itself, does the sun alone change our DNA and upgrade our consciousness? Well, technically, the sun puts out radiation, which changes DNA, right? So if I irradiate DNA and RNA, can I affect changes? Yes, I can. Can that ray come from a machine or from the sun? Yes, it could come from either source. So technically, yes, the sun can change our DNA.
And David wants to know,
alone in its influence? No.
David wants to know, what's the best thing the Ponte with you now like about the planet, apart from the Hershey kisses?
About life on planet Earth.
What's the thing that they like on planet Earth the most, hon? Well, all right, the DNA, if you ask the Ponte that are here right now what they like about our planet the most, what would they say?
The water.
The water.
And everybody's all connected. When you look at it, it's like a spider web. The internet and all the rest of it, like here, what's going on here with the conversations scattered around the world, all coming together to talk about them or other subjects. It's simultaneously is totally fascinating.
They love the learning. They love our humor. They
consider us an ancient society because they in their societies all telepathically communicate. Don't have telephones and don't have internet per se.
Well, okay, all right. So this is a phenomena that's new to them. That's one thing that we did learn from Telecom, is that we were the first world that was this close to its own official first contact that had free social media where they could chat with people from every continent and teach in the manner that they've been sharing on Twitter and Facebook. They had not run into another planet that had this capability of having them personally share their story with so many individuals all at the same time, across borders, across boundaries, across religions, across cultures, and have so many people from so many places ask them things before the official first contact actually took place in a big public setting. So it gave them an opportunity to break the ice a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they've been doing.
And Kristen wants to know here about the treaty. Who the treaties with, only star nations, or was this Earth human race on it as well, like our governments?
All right. So what we do know is that initially, with the in the late 40s, early 50s, here in North America, in the United States, our President Eisenhower met with some of the Star Nation people. Okay, one of the terrestrial groups. However, they had a discussion with the Star Nation folks that persuaded or attempted to persuade them that Earth humans were not ready for that contact yet. And they requested time to get their people ready. That would take us from late 40s, early 50s up to the early 70s. In 1971, not just the United States, but a number of nations here that are Earth human nations got together and agreed to meet with Star Nation peoples. So we have several countries, several Star Nations, all meeting in 1971 in August, I believe. I think it was
Middle East.
Yeah, somewhere in the Middle East is our guess. We don't have an exact location where. We don't know who organized all of this. We don't know if it was our people who requested it.
It was desert environment.
It was desert environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not see, when I looked at this area and looked around the outside of these huge tents that were set up out in the desert, I did not see any roads. I didn't see any evidence of other human civilization, like a city in the background or electricity or anything like that, that was leading up to this location. So I don't know exactly where it was. All we know is that it was signed for 50 years. And at the end of 50 years, and part of the treaty was them not providing photographs, videos, technology, or teaching about any of those things in conversation.
Suntan lotion for the next one.
What?
Oh, it's the whole buzz. They're going nuts because nobody talked about how many of them got sunburned.
Oh. Otter just said some of the Ponte got sunburned at the last one, and that the crew that's here said that they were bringing more suntan lotion for the next one.
That's hilarious.
Also,
Kat wants to know, going back to the micronova or the supernova, whatever happens, did they have an agreement in place or to help protect or transport any humans if the micronova or supernova happens? Have they sort of said anything about getting people off planet? Or yes, you're shaking your head?
Yes, we already have a number of huge hospital ships lined up on the outer edge of our solar system. And our astronomers have, and our NASA here in the United States has caught images of fleets of multiple ships coming into our solar system. And we're not talking about 2 or 3, we're talking about dozens or hundreds. But all of them are going out and parking out beyond Neptune's orbit, waiting, and are there almost like they've prepped and know that we're under a storm warning, or a storm watch rather, and are waiting in case things go bad real fast. Are there enough hospital ships to rescue all 7.8 billion of us?
No.
Not even close. No way, no how.
Sounds like the
You
Titanic.
cannot rescue that many souls at all. Period. End of sentence. They recommend that if you have a way to go underground here, that's your best bet.
Mm.
It's what's been done in the past. And in fact, star nations have led Earth humans underground in previous environmentally dangerous situations and kept them there and fed them and housed them for years until it was safe to come back up.
Yeah, I've heard stories about that from other cataclysmic events on Earth, that the life form that was here on Earth, whether it's reptilian or some sort of humanoid life form, not everyone was wiped out, that they did go underground and still live there. That's another story. But Wendy says here, are these same humans from the 1961 Betty and Barney Hill experience where they drew a map that seemed to point to Zeta Reticuli, where is or was their planet in relation to those stars? How long does it take them to travel hundreds of miles? So a couple of questions. So is it the same people that Betty and Barney Hill spoke to, do you know? Or the same?
What we can tell you is that Tilcom early on identified the first homeworld as the fifth planet orbiting Zeta Reticuli 2. Zeta Reticuli is a binary system with two suns. And the planets that orbit the further of those two stars. If you go to planet 5, that was their original home world. Now, can you find the Ponte all over the galaxy now? Yes. Just like you can find Australians on every single continent on Earth. You can find United States citizens on every continent on Earth also. We don't stay put. They don't either. So do they have colonies? Do they have other subcultures within their culture, just like we do? Yes. Thousands of them.
Yeah.
And so do they understand the drawing of Betty and Barney Hill? And was it Zeta Reticuli? Yes, it was. But that's as far as our understanding has gone with that particular incident.
And another part of the question was, how long does it take them to travel hundreds of trillions of miles? I think that time and space
Depends on the transport.
Okay.
Depends on the ship.
Okay.
If you asked me that question and I hopped in my little Prius and drove, how long would it take me to drive to you? Okay. Versus how long would it take me to get to you if I hopped in a supersonic jet, or if I got a ride with one of them. Fastest we've heard of is 9 days to go from here to Zeta Reticuli 2. But we've heard of plenty of slower transports also. And if there's stops along the way, then it takes even longer.
Those are freighters.
Mm-hmm. There are regular routes that are easier to travel routes through the galaxy, though. And those routes are known by most of the advanced Star Nation travelers that have been exploring for, thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
They have space charts just like our pilots have.
That's right. They have space charts just like our pilots do.
Yeah.
Are there places up there where you know that there are Sasquatch? Yes, because you can see their structures. And you can see where they leave markers of, this is the safe place to cross the road. Have we been inside the mountain? I have images from inside the mountain that are very clear, but whether I was there or I'm getting information from one of the Ponte, that I can't tell you. But I have extensive images from inside the mountain. Consciously, I don't know that I have been conscious of walking through a door into the mountain that I am aware of. Unless you would take me under hypnosis, I wouldn't know any different.
Out of the door of a spaceship, that's what you remember.
Right. We do remember being inside of their craft. I remember and Otter remember on separate occasions. We do have stories from local delivery people who talk about driving a semi full of food up to an acreage on the far side of the mountain on the eastern slope, pulling into this one house, one very large barn acreage, backing the semi into the barn. The driver gets out, goes into the house to sign paperwork, and 10 minutes later, he's back out to his rig, but it's empty, and he's seen no one. He has no idea where all the food went. We do know that. We have spoken with people who were delivery people to Sandia National Labs, and they describe unusual individuals that they encountered in dropping off packages. And so are we aware that there are multiple ways of possibly getting into the mountain and the ancient tunnel system? Yes. We know of at least one entrance on this western slope and one on the western slope and two on the eastern slope that I know of. Do you know of other than that?
Two and two.
You know 2 and 2? Okay.
Mhm.
I haven't seen the second one on this side then. We do know that the Sandia National Laboratories is not located inside the Sandia Mountain. It's located in the mountain chain directly to the
Manzano.
south,
Manzano.
in the mountains known as the Manzanos. And they're still connected with the ancient tunnel system, but there was a collapse in the tunnel system between the Sandias and the Manzanos. They are cultural explorers. They use the phrase, they are gardeners of intellect, as in gardeners taking a seed and planting it in a place where it will flourish, grow, and become the best it can be. Okay, so gardeners of intellect. Are they teachers? They are natural teachers. And so all three would be absolutely true, yes. There is a free manual written by one of our Ponte friends, Tani, that I helped her translate. And it's called, right, we both did, but primarily we translated what Tani had us. Tani was introduced to us as our telepathy instructor in June of 2016. And she, that summer, intensively worked with Otter and I, and we translated what is a beginning manual on how to get from where you are telepathically and improve your own skill set at your own pace. That manual is called the Telepathy 101 Primer, Primer, looks like primer. That is available for free. It's a 285-page slide presentation available in the documents section of officialfirstcontact.com. So go to officialfirstcontact.com, look in the document section and download your own copy of the Telepathy 101 Primer for free and start studying. Tani and the rest of the Ponte recommend that if you want to invite them to come visit you at your home, that you spend 100 days studying the primer before you start that process. What they say is that it takes our brains a period of adjustment time to get used to their intensive kind of telepathic communication, because it's so much more profound than just hearing my voice or seeing my image. It comes with emotions, it comes with side thoughts, it comes with history, it comes with movies, it comes with other people involved. It comes with all kinds of details that just hearing somebody's words like you hear them on a radio don't give you. So it takes our brains a while to build those new neurological connections to the point where it can trust it. So the Telepathy 101 Primer is available. And in the back, they talk about protocols. that the Ponte have taught us about inviting them. So we've asked them directly, is time travel possible? They say, oh yeah, but we don't recommend it. And we say, well, why not? Too many things can go wrong, is what they say. We hear exactly what you just voiced, Catman, about people saying, well, oh, you must be in a different timeline. I'm going to be real straight with you guys. I've done this kind of a business and talked to these guys for a while now, and I hear a lot of people in the paranormal community using that line, oh, well, you must be in a different timeline, when they're not tracking or when they disagree with that person, or it's an excuse that it's not really a different timeline, but they're saying it is. I think a lot of things get made up as excuses when that really is not the case. Does that mean that there's only one timeline? Of course not. Does it mean that we hop between timelines freely? No, we don't. And people think that we do. And so, is it possible to shift from one timeline to another? We don't know how to.
Yes.
You can, but do you want to answer the question, hon? Okay. We don't know how to. They haven't taught us how to. And I would honestly ask the person who uses it as an excuse, who taught you how to shift timelines? That's never been an easy thing to do. How'd you learn to do it? And see what they say. I would bet you money they would come up with a because they're using it as an excuse. When we hear a lot of people, when paranormal reality doesn't fit their personal mold, use a "you must be in a different timeline" excuse. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with doing that, and I don't agree with dodging a question or an issue by doing that. Well, the very first time I can tell you that I consciously recall seeing a Star Nation person of any kind, I was 3.5 to 4. Okay, I was very young. Otter remembers being 10. So both of us had experiences with other Star Nations, not just the Ponte, from decades ago. His in the 50s, mine in the 60s. I can tell you that I do recall being 6 or 7 years old and being very, very afraid of the small guys with the big eyes that came out of my closet. And they were about the Ponte size and about the Ponte eye shape. Can I say specifically that they were Ponte versus another Zeta body type nation? I don't think I have that kind of a detailed memory, except that whenever I sense them around, I covered up my head with my blanket. Do I remember as an adult meeting the Ponte before I moved to New Mexico and was introduced to them then? Yes. Back in 1998, I had a visit very close to the summer solstice of that year in Iowa, and I woke up probably somewhere between 2:30 and 4 in the morning, and there were 4 of them standing at the foot of my bed. And I specifically remember that with no hypnosis. That's a conscious memory, and I didn't know what to do with it at the time. And I, like you, Sarah, went through a lot of fear. I went through extreme fear and insomnia for months, and finally had to come to terms with that fear and get used to the fact that there were beings out there that I didn't know much about, that I was not in control of their comings and goings, that at the time, back in the 1990s, I did not remember them ever responding to my questions. And I asked and I asked and I asked and I asked and I asked. I can tell you I remember standing out in the backyard in the middle of the night saying, please just answer me back. Please just talk to me. I can't help you if we can't communicate back and forth. And that was 20 years plus before, let's see, I met them here then from 98 until 13, that was 15 years it took. So 15 years after seeing them at the foot of my bed, I moved to New Mexico and they contacted us.
You know, Sue, that's so fascinating because you've had such an extensive career as a psychic, intuitive, you know, working with different people, that I suspect that that contact was a big part of the reason why you developed your psychic ability so extensively. And I think that for everyone I think that every human being needs to develop their psychic abilities for us to even evolve, but especially if we're going to be introduced to the Star Nation people and be part of a galactic family, we really all need to start developing our psychic abilities and intuitive abilities and telepathic abilities for that to happen. Yeah, so it's so interesting that you say that. Yeah, so people sort of cry out and say, can I speak to you? Can I speak to you? And I guess they're going, yes, you can, but you need to develop your psychic, intuitive, telepathic ability.
Well, and they're also looking for right-minded action,
Right.
mature, honest individuals, people who have the capacity to put down their fear, but still keep their skepticism and discernment intact. And they treat us Earth humans like adults. When we're ready to ask the question, we're ready to get the answer, but we have to ask. So, did they answer my questions right away? I remember from the time I met the four at the foot of my bed, it being a year and a half in Iowa before I had any Star Nation person respond to a question that I posed of any kind. And the first time somebody responded to a question that I asked, I was absolutely thrilled, because then I knew communication of some kind could get started. Up until that point in time, it was always a one-sided deal. So learning to pay attention to the input that you receive as an Earth human person from not just your third eye, but from your entire body, from your entire being. Not just your eyes. We are very visual centric, meaning you've heard the phrase, I'll believe it when I see it. That's because we put more emphasis on what we see with our eyes than what we hear with our ears, or what we smell with our nose, or what we taste. And the Ponte are saying, trust all of your senses. Don't discount something because one sensory organ picks it up, but another does not. So I'm glad it is. It needs to.
I know we're in
Because
exciting times.
there's a lot of unusual overlap in all of these fields, and the ghost researchers weren't talking to the Sasquatch researchers, who weren't talking to the UFO researchers.
Yeah.
And now that they're all talking to each other, they're going, oh, you too? Us too? How does that work? And they finally have a dialogue going.
I know.
About time.
It's so exciting. You know, in the spiritual community, we want to meditate and we want to maybe speak to dead people or speak to Mother Mary or the Archangel Michael. But really, it's all one conversation. If you're communicating with your spirit guides, then you have the capacity to communicate with other dimensional beings, including other dimensional beings that live here on Earth, like Sasquatch and the Fae or the Fairy Kingdom, you know. And so it's all connected. The UFO, like, we're all bringing it all together. And I hope hopefully I'm doing that, you know, with the shows and the Inner Sanctum. I sort of bring many conversations together. We're not just talking about enlightenment. We're talking ETs, we're talking speaking to dead people. We're doing all of it, hopefully.
I'm glad you guys liked it, and feel free to, if you're on Twitter, look up Sandia the ET or at Sandia Wisdom. If you're on Facebook, I find, at least since the pandemic started for sure, that my time is precious. And sometimes I just don't have time to do all of the various social media and do the things that the Ponte want us to do and help Otter and I just cope with everyday life stuff and deal with health situations. And so Facebook, unfortunately, has been set aside in favor of Twitter, which is because the Ponte preferred it. But I will try and get back onto Facebook and do more as things calm down and we get into a new normal.
Sounds like you need some help, darling. I'm sure you could get a little volunteer to help you with the social media stuff.
I could use some help.
Yeah, maybe put that out there to your tribe. I'm sure there'd be people.
I think that's a good idea. I need to do that.
If you don't want to pay them, you could probably just, you know, teach them telepathy, do an exchange, and
and you can always ask us a question on Facebook or Twitter, or you can email me. My psychic website is SueWalker.com. Just don't put an E on Sue, S-U Walker. And so you can find my email there and shoot me an email also if you want.
goodbye.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone.
We'll do this another time.
Good.
Twitter, Facebook.
Awesome.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Sue.
All right. Been a wonderful afternoon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone, for joining, and thanks for staying on.